Hi, folks. So good evening, everyone. I'd like to extend a very warm welcome to all the folks who are here tonight for the start of Family Weekend. I still remember when I first came to Brown and my parents came with me. We unpacked my room, walked around campus for a little bit, and before we knew it, it was time for them to go. Needless to say, there was a pretty tearful goodbye involved. And all of us were looking forward to and hopeful that they would be able to come to Family Weekend. And from the energy that I felt and the warmth in here tonight, I'm sure many of you shared that same sentiment. So I'm glad that y'all are able to join us for this year's Family Weekend at Brown. My name is Chelsey Steele. I'm a senior concentrating in computer science and Africana studies, and this year I'm the president of the Undergraduate Council of Students. Over the past 3 years, Brown has become my home, and many of the folks here have become part of my chosen family. They've supported me, challenged me, and together we've grown and changed in ways that I couldn't have even imagined. Hopefully this weekend, you'll get a glimpse into what your student's life is like here at Brown, and you'll be able to experience the heart of this community for yourself. This evening, I have the honor of introducing Christina Paxson. Christina Paxson is the president of Brown University, as well as an economist and a public health expert. And during her time here at Brown, she spearheaded initiatives centered on honoring this university's commitment to academic discovery, diversity, and accessibility, among many other things. It's been a privilege to work with her and to witness how this university has been positively shaped by her, my peers, and countless other administrators. So again, I hope that y'all are able to have a very wonderful family weekend, and I'd like to welcome President Paxson.
Thank you so much, Chelsey, and good evening, everybody. Welcome to Family Weekend. It's good to see all of you. In a little while, I will have the distinct privilege of introducing our Family Weekend keynote speaker. But before I do, I want to talk to you a little bit, and I want to encourage you to take in some of the amazing events that we have here for this weekend. Everything from a Shakespeare on the Green production of Macbeth, to a retrospective exhibit on the Voyager 1 and 2 space probes, an academic forum on our Breakthrough Lab featuring a group of student entrepreneurs, and more. Just look through the program, really good things. Of course, tomorrow we have a very classic Ivy League football matchup pitting Bears against Tigers. That would be Brown versus Princeton, and I am looking forward to the Brown victory. Now, as Chelsey alluded to, the most important part of this weekend, though, is for you to see firsthand what life is like for your child or your sibling or niece or nephew at Brown. And we may live in an age of virtual relationships, but somehow, as I'm sure you all know, phone calls, text messages, Facebook posts, they just can't substitute for the real thing. Every child is different, of course, in how they communicate, and some of you may be getting daily, real-time downloads every day. Some of you may be. No? Okay. Others, and this has been my experience as a parent, I don't think either of my children is here, so I won't embarrass them if I say this, has been only able to coax out just very tiny bits of information, mostly by text. And it goes something like this. Question, how are your classes? Answer a few minutes later, great. Question, are you getting along with your roommate? Answer, maybe a few hours later, he's cool. Question, are you getting enough sleep? No response ever. Okay, So in any case, most of you are parents of first-year students, and even for the other parents, I hope that you'll see three things during your weekend here. The first is that your child feels grounded and comfortable. They know their way around campus, they're making good friends, they're finding their place or places within the Brown ecosystem. And this is really important because we want all students here at Brown to feel a sense of ownership in this university. No matter what their path to get here, where they come from, Brown is their university. They have a stake not only in their own intellectual and social development, but in the success of everyone in this community. This ownership that we try so hard to instill unleashes the magic of a student-centered learning environment that we work very, very hard to create. We have these intellectually curious, creative, and I have to say, exceptionally good-hearted students, and they have an uncommon ability to work together in ways that help everyone learn more and aspire higher. If you want examples, you don't have to go much farther than Chelsey, right here, who just spoke. She has worked tirelessly with colleagues, students, as well as faculty and administrators to support students from underrepresented groups in her field, one of her fields of computer science. Or you can look at students who volunteer with local schools through our Swearer Center, cheer on their friends at athletic events, or serve as tutors, helping peers hone their writing and analytics skills. When I see what the students do here to help each other, to support each other, I am constantly astonished just by the goodness of the community. And it starts with our students, your children, joining with faculty and administrators to create the caring and collaborative environment that we all want. So that's the first thing. Second, what I hope you see is that your children have successfully navigated, for those of you first-year students, the first time, Brown's famous shopping period, and that they have selected courses that are interesting, challenging, and provide the intellectual engagement that's the hallmark of a Brown education. There are some lingering myths out there. I hear them when I'm out on the road. I think none of you probably buy into them. For example, that our open curriculum gets students off the hook from taking hard courses. But you're likely hearing something very different. I know you know that Brown students are incredibly serious about academics. And the open curriculum, I am convinced, actually lends itself to academic rigor. When students take the courses that they want to take, they are more engaged in their learning, and this impacts teaching, too. There's this really great relationship here at Brown. I know from my time at another university that there is nothing worse than teaching students who are slumped in the back row of a class because they're taking it merely to fulfill a requirement. And what the open curriculum does is it creates a virtuous circle of great faculty teaching subjects they love to students who want to learn about those subjects, and it doesn't get much better than that. So last, I hope you see that your children are developing a cadence of academics and extracurriculars, social life, and yes, sleep that works for them. And my experience is that striking this balance can be one of the most difficult parts of the transition to college, especially for students like yours who are just eager to leap into almost everything. And this is where families can be very helpful. For most first-year students, this is the first time they're freely making choices. And a little nudging from you, maybe over this weekend, can go a long way to helping them set realistic priorities and assuring them that they're going to have plenty of time to do everything that they want to do while they're here at Brown. If you have concerns about this, I would encourage you to attend tomorrow's 9 a.m. Life and Learning Inside and Outside the Classroom session with Dean of the College, Maud Mandel, who's right here, and she's sitting next to Vice President of Campus Life, Eric Estes. So they'll lead that, and they can answer any questions you might have. Now, as we all know, the past few years have tested higher education in pretty serious ways on issues of national concern, racism, immigration policy, free speech, political and economic polarization. We talk about them across the country. We talk about them here on campus. And they become contentious issues on some American campuses. But it's during times of tension that we really learn just how resilient our communities are. And I have to say, I stand very proud of what we're doing here at Brown. Every single day, the story is the same. We see students and faculty who are learning, they're advancing knowledge in a spirit of free inquiry and great joy in the context of a diverse and supportive community. And it doesn't get much better than that. Now, that's a perfect lead-in to a new initiative that I'd like to highlight before I introduce our speaker. I talk to students all the time about life at Brown and life after Brown. And what they often tell me is that they are finding here what they love, what they really want to do in life. And they also express the hope that they can keep doing what they love after they graduate. But as we all know, the burden of student debt can sometimes get in the way of career plans and graduate school. Debt can deter students from coming to Brown or to college in general. And at a time when Brown is competing, sometimes fiercely, for the most amazing students from all over the country, all over the world, we want to ensure that we can continue to attract the best and brightest students without cost getting in the way. And that's why we launched the Brown Promise last month. This promise is a promise to eliminate loans from the financial aid packages of all Brown students, domestic and international. And if we can raise $30 million by December, and we are well on our way, it will begin in the 2018-19 academic year for all new and returning students, again, domestic and international. And this will mean more great students will be able to come to Brown, and when they're here, they're going to have an open field to pursue the career choices that are personally meaningful for them. Now, some of you, if you have a chance, go on our website and look at the place on the website. If you Google it, you'll find it, where we feature the Brown Promise. And there are some video clips there of our students being interviewed out in the main green, and they were asked, what would it mean if you were free of debt? And one student talked about it as being able to have more passion about having an impact on the world. Another observed that if students didn't have to pay back loans, they would be more inclined to explore things that they've never tried. And there was one that was my favorite. It just made my heart skip a beat. The student who imagined almost wistfully that in a world without debt, he would feel like he could fly. And we want our students to fly. And I know that even without loans, parents want their children to find fulfilling careers and meaningful lives. So last point that I want to make before I introduce our speaker, at some point during your child's college years, you will have the life after Brown conversation. Some of you may have had it already. And for some of you, that conversation might go like this. Mom or Dad, I'm not so sure I'm interested in medical school. It's not really who I am, and I find a lot more satisfaction in other areas. And you reply with some trepidation, great, what are you interested in? And your child says, I want to be a writer. And you think, but hopefully don't say, oh no, I didn't see that coming. Well, we have to support her for the rest of our lives. What about our retirement? And if that happens to you, I want you to think back, and I want you to remember tonight, when you heard from one of the most successful writers of our time, someone who is living proof that doing what you love need not result in poverty. And that man is James Patterson. When we think about James Patterson's footprint in the literary world and in popular culture, it's the numbers that just jump at us. They are staggering. More than 150 published works, 114 New York Times bestsellers, 67 New York Times #1 bestsellers, a record, over 350 million books sold, and since 2001, a rock-solid hold on the title of world's best-selling author. His books have become called unputdownable, I think that's a new word, owing to a storytelling style that dispenses with overwrought detail and delivers more on pace and suspense in the minute-to-minute experience of beloved characters like Alex Cross and Michael Bennett. He's a master of the page-turner, and he's aware of exactly what his loyal readers want, to know what happens next. If there could be considered a formative stop in Mr. Patterson's career trajectory, which began with a BA from Manhattan College and included PhD study at Vanderbilt, it was his time at J. Walter Thompson, the famed advertising agency. He rose from copywriter to creative director to CEO, and it was at that agency, and maybe he'll tell us more about this, I hope what I'm saying is true, that he found what he loved, that it's not just to write appealing content for clients, but to preside over a creative process, and he does this remarkably well. He's paid his extraordinary success forward in philanthropic gifts that flow from his love of books and education. He's given millions of dollars to support independent bookstores, set up scholarships at colleges and universities, but perhaps the most important and enduring gift that Mr. Patterson has bestowed is his passionate support for kids to become lifelong readers. He's garnered many accolades and awards during his amazing writing career. I won't read them all, but among them are the Literarian Award for Outstanding Service to the American Literary Community, 2 Emmy Awards, and the Children's Choice Award for Author of the Year. So today, the honor is unequivocally ours, and on behalf of everyone at Brown, we are thrilled to have you here. Please join me in welcoming acclaimed author, ultimate storyteller, reading advocate, and Brown parent, Mr. James Patterson.
Thank you, thank you. Please sit. Oh, you're sitting, all right. Hi, I'm Stephen King. Yes, what President Paxson said, it's true, mostly true. Many books sold, many trees needlessly felled before their time for paper, but it gets worse. On September 19th, Forbes magazine celebrated the world's 100 greatest living business minds. The 100 included Bill Gates, Meg Whitman, Warren Buffett, Sheryl Sandberg, Jeff Bezos, and me? Weird. I told you it gets worse. The interesting thing about my inclusion on this top 100 list is that all I've ever done in life is tell stories. Now, here's a story. A few years ago, I appeared on the TV show Castle a couple of times. And a few weeks ago, I was on a plane. I'm walking down the aisle, and this woman starts pointing at me. And she says, I know you. So I stopped and talked to her, and she said, you played Patterson on Castle. So I'm going to play Patterson again tonight. I have come to believe in the power of stories, and that's what I'm going to talk about, stories, to effectively change lives and do a lot of good. Once upon a time, I told a story that helped change the fortunes of the Ford Motor Company and thus helped the city of Detroit. Ford stood for Found or Repaired Daily, or Found on Road Dead. The story I told, helped change their image to that of a reliable innovator, which is what they had become. Years later, I told a story about Toys R Us. I don't want to grow up, I'm a Toys R Us kid. That helped them stay solvent until recently. The stories only take you so far. Yes, as Christina said, regretfully, I worked in advertising at one time, but I've been clean for over 20 years. Nowadays, like all of you in the room, I'm very interested in Brown's story. And one story I like very much about Brown has to do with the culture for students here. And this is very real. The story goes something like this. You're all smart, so don't beat each other up and support one another. I wish I wrote that story. I love that story. It's a great story. I wish it was America's story these days. I really do. I also love the reality of the open curriculum, and I get it. The Brown Promise, I love that story. The Graduate Center. I was talking to the author and CNN commentator, Jeffrey Toobin, about Brown. Jeffrey went to Harvard, boo. But his son went to Brown, yay. And I asked Jeffrey how his son liked Brown, and Jeffrey said he loved it. Then he said that he, Jeffrey, didn't actually consider Brown a university. He considered it a cult, which is kind of true. Many Brown graduates say that their 4 years here were the best years of their lives. The story I prefer a little bit, and I think Christina was talking about that, the story would go, my 4 years here were memorable and fabulous and prepared me for an even more memorable and fabulous life after Brown. I discovered what I truly love at Brown. That, to me, is just a spectacular story. A few of you may have come in here with a sentence or two about me stuck somewhere in your busy minds. Your appropriately short James Patterson story may be something like popular, God knows why, sometimes collaborates, thank God, devilishly handsome. We all have a story, okay, maybe a couple of stories that people use to describe us. Okay, if you think about that, there is the story, usually kind of crazy, that our family members use to describe us. For example, with me, James was always a little strange. That's my story in my family. Then there's the line or two that people use to characterize us at work. And these stories can sometimes be deadly, what I call caricature assassinations. Most relevant right now are the stories that describe or circumscribe the students here at Brown. And I think it's really useful for students to form strong opinions about their core value, their core. I think it's important that they get comfortable with their story and with their core. Get comfortable with who you are, accept it. And I've been talking to our son Jack about his core story since he was 4 years old. Poor Jack. My own core story has something to do with trying to do the right thing as much as I can, trying to be a good husband and dad. I mean, that's my core. Not necessarily succeeding, but trying. I've been spending a lot of time with President Clinton lately, and I think that's his core too. He's always tried to do the right thing. He's tried to be as good as he can be, and he's tried to be a good dad and husband. And I have a lot of evidence about that. I was born in a small river town on the Hudson, Newburgh, New York. My father grew up in the Newburgh poorhouse, called the Pogie. That's what they called it. And his mother was a charwoman at the poorhouse, which meant that she cleaned the kitchens and the bathrooms. And for that, she and my father got a single room to share. And that's why I feel I should be the next president of the United States. As we all know, there are far worse things that could happen. So in my lifetime, I have been poor, I've been middle class, and I've been rich. And as I look back on that, I think rich is better. But I wouldn't be who I am if I hadn't lived through the whole demographic spectrum. I mentioned that I worked in advertising. I was CEO of J. Walter Thompson at 37. I did not like the job. Here's a useful story I learned along the way about working for a living. Story. Imagine life as a game in which we're juggling 5 balls in the air, and I think we can all identify with this story. And the balls represent work, family, health, friends, and spirit. And somehow we're managing to keep all those balls in the air. You know, we've all been there, right? We're probably there tonight. Hopelessly juggling, dancing as fast as we can. Hopefully, at some point, we come to understand that work is a rubber ball. If we drop it, it will actually, most of the time, bounce back. But the other 4 balls, family, health, friends, spirit, are made of glass. If we drop one of those, they will be irrevocably scuffed, marked, nicked, damaged, maybe even shattered. They will never be the same. And once we understand that, maybe, just maybe, we strive for more balance in our lives. I followed that slightly corny lesson of the 5 balls. I quit my job at J. Walter Thompson. I began writing full-time. Actually, I had been writing on the side all along. My very first novel, the Thomas Behrman number, written when I was 26, was turned down by 31 publishers before Little Brown accepted it. After being rejected 31 times, the novel won an Edgar Award as the best first mystery in America. So if you ever have a book rejected by New York publishers, even 31 times, break out the champagne. You've probably got a best-selling award winner on your hands. Right now, I'm working on a novel with President Clinton. My early opinion of the president was formed during his second term. A photograph of President Clinton appeared in thousands of newspapers. And in the picture, he was saluting a Marine as he stepped off a helicopter from Camp David. And under his other arm, plainly visible, was a copy of my novel, When the Wind Blows. My respect for the president, his intelligence, his taste in literature soared. And I have to say that working with President Clinton is one of the highlights of my writing career. The Clinton novel, and also right now I'm working with the Einstein estate on a novel for middle school kids. And if I do my job correctly with that series of books, the series will introduce an incredible number of kids to Albert Einstein and to science. The main character of the series is Max Einstein, and Max is a girl, which is also important, I think. Just one publishing story, which is typical of so many publishing stories. They have these kind of drive-by signings where you just show up at a bookstore. And so I showed up at this bookstore once in Manhattan. And they're like, "Oh my God, Mr. Patterson, this is so great. We're so happy you're here." And they're slapping 5s and slapping high fives. And they said, "We got hundreds of your books back there, to sign." So I go to the back of the store, and sure enough, on these tables, hundreds of books, Richard North Patterson books. So I signed them. Now, and you should take this seriously. I mean, we've had a lot of kidding here, but just as a warning for everybody in this room, some Brown students will want to test the waters out in Hollywood. Brown students do very well out there. There's actually something called, this is a real thing, it's called the Brown Mafia in Hollywood. It's true. The very talented Todd Haynes from Brown directed Carol, Far From Heaven. Actually, I remember the year that Carol came out. This tells you a lot about me. My favorite movies were Carol, Spotlight, and Mad Max. Yeah. Doug Liman also came from here. He directed Mr. and Mrs. Smith and The Bourne Identity and something else more recently. We won't talk about that. John Krasinski, Emma Watson, Laura Linney. It's a long, long list. But my personal advice, don't let your babies grow up to work in Hollywood. Here's a Hollywood story that begins to tell you what it's like. They have these press junkets for just about every movie, you know, movies like Son of Chucky 5. They'll have a press junket. And there'll be as many people as there are in this room, all to hear about Son of Chucky 5 or whatever the movie is. And so they invited me to a press junket for Along Came a Spider, one of the Morgan Freeman movies. And Paramount figured they better show me the movie first because the press was going to ask me what I thought about it. So I watched this movie from a book that I wrote, and I watched the first scene, and I go, all right, well, that wasn't in the book. And I'm watching the second scene, and Morgan Freeman, Alex Cross, is building this ship in the bottle, and I go, well, that wasn't in the book either. And it didn't seem very cinematic to me. You know, he's building a ship in a bottle. So a little later, and then a woman comes in, and she basically says, enough with the ships in the bottle, get out there and let's get some action going, essentially, without saying that. But I don't know who she is. And I wrote the book. And she never comes back in the movie. So I see Morgan Freeman a little later in the press junket, and I go, Morgan, who was the woman in the second scene of the movie? He said, oh, that's Alex Cross's sister. I said, oh, I didn't know Alex had a sister. This is Hollywood. Nicer Hollywood story. I was on The Simpsons once. I was a cartoon character. And in the episode, Marge is on the beach, and she's reading one of my books, and she says, oh, I just love James Patterson. And then I come by on this white horse, and then they cut, and Marge is on the back of the white horse, and, you know, she's going, oh, I love your books. Let's make up some nursery rhyme titles, because some of the early Alex Cross books had nursery rhyme titles. And I say, Marge, I think there's some cooler stuff we could do to that. And then we cut, and this alarm clock thing goes off, my eyes go sideways. And then Marge is in the bedroom, and Homer comes in, and he says to Marge, he says, Marge, that was great last night. Why did you keep calling me James? In spite of Hollywood, I remain incredibly passionate about what I do, which is so important. It absolutely is the best reason to do anything, not money, not fame, passion. And years ago, I came across something that Flaubert said about writing, and it captures the way I feel when I sit down to write. And I write every morning, 7 days a week, on probably 360 days a year. And Flaubert wrote, he said, it is a delicious thing to write, to be no longer yourself, but to move in an entire universe of your own creating. Today, for instance, as man and woman, both lover and mistress, I rode in a forest on an autumn afternoon under the yellow leaves, and I was also the horses, the wind, the words my people uttered, even the red sun that almost made them close their loved, drowned eyes. That's what it's like to write. You're the whole thing. You're the scene. You're the wind. It is a great, great job. Now, as for that med student, pre-med student, I would say stay in med school, write on the side. If you have the passion and the skill and the luck, your writing will be fine. And if you don't, you'll be a doctor. I want to tap one sort of larger picture story. Most of us, not all, but most of us would agree that we live in an interdependent world. And if we accept that, then we probably reject the story of separatist tribalism. Of course, some people in the current administration in Washington do not reject separatist tribalism. They embrace it. Lately, I dread getting up in the morning because I know there will be a tweet waiting for me. At any rate, most of you probably do accept the story of partnerships as opposed to separatist tribalism, and that is a key to a better, saner world. And there's proof, because partnership has proven to be more successful than governments acting alone, more successful than businesses acting alone, more successful than philanthropists acting alone. And for this reason, I hope partnerships will continue to be a very important part of Brown's story. Partnerships not only just here in Rhode Island and here in town, but partnerships that extend across the globe. One last story. Thank God they said, Jesus, how many stories? Yeah. During the summers, when I was a kid in Newburgh, my grandfather would take me on his delivery route once a week. And these were great treats for me. And we'd be up at 4 in the morning packing up his truck, and before 5 we'd be on our way. And most of us, this isn't necessarily the greatest job in the world, driving a delivery truck and getting up at 4 in the morning and getting back at 7:30 so in the evening. But every morning when I was with him, my grandfather would drive over the Storm King Mountain toward West Point, and he would be singing at the top of his voice. And his big, clumsy truck would be jouncing all over the road. And in this horrifying voice, he'd sing "Oh, Susanna," or "Put Another Nickel in the Nickelodeon," or "Coming Over the Mountain." And my grandfather told me this. He said, "Jim, when you grow up, I don't care if you're a truck driver or a famous surgeon or you wind up being president. Just remember that when you go over the mountain to work in the morning, you've got to be singing." I do. I hope all the same for you and your children and your children's children. Thank you so much. You and your kids have chosen very, very well. You chose Brown. Now that's a story with a very happy ending. Thank you. We could just leave on that.
No, we're not going to.
We're ahead.
We're going to go sit. So thank you. We're not leaving. No, we're not leaving. We have a little bit of time, and we have the pleasure. I'm going to ask Jim a few questions. We'll talk a little bit, and then we'll open up the floor to questions from the audience. So thank you so much. That was terrific, and I'm glad that you said nicer things about Brown than Harvard. So just a couple questions. Your work is incredibly broad. You've worked with many, many co-authors, written in many different genres. And I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about, first of all, how you work with other people, but then how you've decided to make these shifts into new areas.
Yeah. You really want to know?
Yeah.
All right, you ready? Yep. We alternate words, you're too slow. My strength is I have a huge imagination, and I have so many stories. Last year, I started something called Bookshots, where 150-page or less novellas, because I thought there was a need to be met, and also that publishing needs to just keep recreating itself, which it doesn't. It doesn't. They don't innovate very much. And it really was insane thing to do, because I wrote 2 full-length novels and 2,500 pages worth of outlines. There's no book that I do that doesn't do a 50 to 70-page outline, including all of these bookshots. So that year, every bookshot that was written was an idea that I had, and then a 40 or 50-page outline. So the big thing with me is imagination. Style, so-so, but imagination big. And, all the stories that I told up there, it's interesting about storytelling. There's not one great sentence that I uttered when I was up at the podium, but there are a lot of good stories, which is, it's another way to tell stories. Bad writing, good stories.
So you told us about one experience of one of your books being turned into films, but a number of them have been, and I'm wondering if you have anything right now in the works that you can tell us about.
Yeah, there's a lot. I mean, I just had 2 calls today. We're hot now because one of the things is we've done well with CBS. We had a successful show the last 3 years. We have another one coming with Alan Cummings in January, which is cool because it features a gay couple, which I think is a really good thing to bring into all the living rooms of all the CBS people. Get them comfortable with a really loving couple. And not that we're breaking ground there, but it's ground that I think continues to be, we need to deal with it. President Clinton and I went out there for 2 days, and we sold the book that we're working on to Showtime. And I'm very excited about that. The 2 people who are the showrunners for Billions, which I think is a really terrific show, are going to be the showrunners for this. There are a number of them. I'm doing a book on Aaron Hernandez now, and that also is probably moving toward film. It's such a tragic, kind of unbelievable story. Although it's hard to say anything's unbelievable anymore. I mean, you know, you just wake up every day and go like, what? Seriously? That happened? He what? He what? What? It's like we live in a cartoon now. I didn't want to be in a cartoon. The Simpsons for 3 minutes, that was enough.
So, who do you like to read besides your own books?
Oh, Tolstoy, Dostoevsky, Proust. A lot of poetry. Sylvia Gleason. I read. I used to read about 3 or 4 books a week. Now I've gotten so busy that I can't do that. But I'm all over the lot. A lot of nonfiction, mysteries, and then a lot of kids books because I write. People don't know, but I write a lot of kids books, which I love to do. That's actually my passion now. I have an imprint at Little Brown called Jimmy Books, and our mission is when a kid finishes a Jimmy book, they'll say, please give me another book, as opposed to I don't like to read, which is really vital. And that's the thing I'm most passionate about right now, getting kids reading.
So could you talk a little bit about what you're doing in that space? It's really important.
Well, I tend to sort of focus, and that is the focus. When a kid, and I think it's really important that there's enough books out there where kids, their response to it is, I loved reading that book. And there are millions and millions and millions of kids in this country who have never read a book that they liked. That is inexcusable. It doesn't help things. There has to be a mix, even in schools, of enough things where, and it's not about memorizing names and titles and all that. We have to stop that. There are a lot of kids here who retain information. That's good. That's a nice parlor trick, but it's not really the most important thing in the world. It's learning how to think. And reading a lot of books helps you to learn how to think, which is the most important thing, I think.
So one final question, and then we'll open it up. I know you gave advice.
Don't open it up.
What?
Don't
I'm going to
open it up.
I am. I don't think I really believe you when you say that the pre-med student should have stayed in pre-med.
I do believe that.
I don't know. Do you really?
Yeah.
So what?
Yeah,
so
yeah,
if
yeah,
you
yeah.
had a student come.
I think, and I'll tell kids this. I'll say, dream big and have a backup dream. It's life, man. It's just tough out there. I don't want to see brilliant kids sitting there being baristas, and you see it all the time. So it's a dual thing. That's, I've been out there, boy. I've seen a lot of bright people crash. Dream, backup dream. For me, that's my 2 cents worth.
Okay.
And I've crashed, I'll tell you.
So thank you. And why don't we have microphones on both sides. I want to give people plenty of time to ask questions. We have about 15 minutes. So come on down and ask. Don't be shy, please.
Don't be shy.
Yeah.
We're going to make fun of you, though. Look at that guy. Oh, my God. Where did he get that? Where did he get that coat? Jesus.
So, what is it?
Come on up to the mic. Yeah, don't be afraid.
So, sir, please.
What is it about fiction that you like better than writing nonfiction?
You know, I've written a little bit of nonfiction, and you know, like and it's not a good book. I wrote a historical thing about King Tut, and I wanted him to live. In fiction, I can make that happen. I can make that happen. And I don't love to research. I do a fair amount of research, but I don't love it. And I just like the freedom. I mean, as I said, my strength really is my imagination. And I'm not as interested in digging into an awful lot of research. You know, the new Grant book is what, almost 1,000 pages. It's a little more than I want on Grant. I want 280 pages on Grant.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, sorry. I'm a shallow thinker. I don't go too deep.
Yes.
Hi.
Hello, thank you both.
Good-looking guy, nice coat. Okay.
If you can, tell us a little bit about how your collaboration with President Clinton began, and is the current chaos called the White House having an effect on your project?
Yeah, I mean, it makes me sick every morning, the chaos. We have the same agent lawyer whose daughter went to Brown. I talked to him today, Bob Barnett. He's at Williams & Connolly in Washington. And he handles pretty much everybody out of Washington. He handles Woodward. He just sold the two Obama books. And he's known the Clintons for over 30 years. And I knew the president a little bit. And at one point they were just talking, and Hillary was there. And he suggested, and Bill loves to read mystery. He's an incredible person. But he loves to read mysteries, among other things. And so Bob suggested to him, would you like to write a book with Jim? And he said, well, let's get together and talk and see how it works out. And we got together, and it's been wonderful. I played golf with him about 3 weeks ago. And he has a very protective staff. You know, so like the president can only play 9 holes. I'm going, great, 2 holes, I don't care, it's good, good by me. And we get to 9 holes, he goes, Jim, let's play some more. And I go, all right, we'll play some more. And I think part of what he was saying there was he didn't have to be president out there with me. It was just the two of us, and we could just go out, mess around, shoot the breeze, blah, blah, blah. And interestingly, he got a call from Hillary, because he was supposed to be, I think, home. And he got a call about an hour later, and he goes, oh, Jim and I are having a great time. We're like 2 high school kids playing hooky. And I just think he loved it. And interestingly, at the end of the call, and she was out because she had her book out that week, and at the end of it, he said, I love you. That was, you know, people don't think of them that way. And I was talking to my agent, and he said that's the way they are. He said they're very, very close. So if you hear any crazy stories, most of them are, there is such a thing as fake news. Not the fake news, but there is fake news too. And that's the fact that the idea, the notion that they don't love each other is fake.
Yeah, I have a question, but I'd like to preface it by saying there's a terrific nonfiction book you might find interesting about Churchill and his finances called No More Champagne.
And you wrote that one, right?
No, I'm kidding. No, but it turns out Churchill didn't write a lot of stuff, but he never credited his collaborators or the people that Ghost wrote the books for him. So my question is, can you talk about your collaborations? How do you identify your partners? And how do you manage them? Are they repetitive partners? And how do you pay them?
And how do I pay them?
How do you pay? I think you can
cash money, baby. You know, for the most part, nobody leaves. It's a kind of a nice environment. People get paid very, very nicely. It takes all of the source of publishing out of it. I will, as I said, I write these 60, 70-page outlines. I then encourage them to contribute for 2 reasons. One, I want their contributions. And secondly, it invests them emotionally in the project. And sometimes they'll do one little thing and they'll go, oh, now it works. Like, okay, that's great. You know, for the most part, most of them love it. It's just, there's not a lot of pressure. I don't pressure anybody. If we miss time, dates, it's okay. And it's very different than the publishing business. And I'm not one of these editors that'll come in and just, give them 100 things that they might not agree with, but they kind of have to do if they want their book published. So it's a nice, it seems to be nice for them. And some of them write other things on the side, so they have that freedom.
So we have a lot of, parents here, as well as a lot of students here. And you sort of, when you described your career, you skipped from early childhood to being a CEO to being a writer. And could you talk a little bit about sort of the going through college and then finding your way into advertising? How did that happen?
Well, you come from a town like Newburgh, New York, and we've talked about it a little bit. Those towns are lost. People from Newburgh, for the most part, don't wind up at Brown or Harvard, and it was a different world then too. I went to a Catholic high school in Newburgh, and I applied to Harvard. People don't believe this stuff, but this is the way it was back then, especially in Catholic schools. So I applied to Harvard, Yale, Colby, and Bates. Come January or February, I had heard from nobody. So my mother and I went in to see this Christian brother, the principal, and he said, "Oh, I never sent your transcripts to any of those schools. But I did send it to the Christian Brothers School, Manhattan College in New York, which is a very good school. This fellow went to it, and whoever you are. and you have full scholarship there." So I wound up going there. I have no regrets about it. And in those days, Catholic kids wound up, an awful lot of them, you would go to a Catholic college. We had Regis in New York was sort of like, and probably still is, the Catholic scholarship, right? And we had 2, 4, and 6 in my class, and they should have all, if they wanted to, should have all wound up in Ivy League schools. So it was just a different world. And Manhattan turned, when I was in advertising, people always go, "Oh, it's really tough." I said, it's nothing compared to Catholic high school. No, and once again, people don't believe this. I remember I went up to Hotchkiss when I told this story, and the kids, "You're kidding." We had Brother Henry sophomore year for math and science. Every class, you would come in, Brother Henry would come in, big guy, about 6'3". He would say, "Gentlemen, anyone who doesn't have their homework, please stand." And he'd walk up to you, "Mr. Patterson," I mostly had my homework, "Mr. Patterson, yes, brother, do you know what's going to happen now? Yes, brother, do you know why? Yes, brother." From the floor, ba-boom, walk to the next kid. Yeah, exactly. She's like, "Oh." That's what we were doing. "Oh, he comes." Brother Henry. Weirdly, when we're 25th anniversary, they invite Brother Henry. We killed him. No. No, I couldn't. I always thought he was a schmuck, but it must be that, what's the syndrome? Stockholm syndrome or something. I don't know. At any rate, yeah. So we'll skip all those periods, and Vanderbilt was a big thing for me. I went to grad school there. It was during Vietnam. And it was the year of the lottery. So I was there, and I had a wonderful fellowship. It was a 3-year, 4-year, whatever it was, PhD fellowship. But they had the lottery, and I got this 280, which is a very high number. But you had to leave to put yourself in the lottery. So I left after a year. And it worked out fine. But the great thing there was a professor, and it was very strange because he was such a right-wing guy, and I'm with the long hair and the whole whatever. I had hair. And he, for some reason, took me under his wing. And we couldn't have been more different in terms of our view of the world. But and he just said, "You can do it. You can do it," which was a big turning point for me.
So one last question.
I don't know what he said I could do, but cut your hair,
So unless there are more questions from the audience, I'll ask you the last question, which is just speaking to the students.
Nothing about Jack.
No, you don't have to speak. No, nothing about Jack. But just what advice do you have for students? Anything?
No, I think you're doing the right thing here. I would have died for a system where you could go and take the classes that you wanted to take. and be surrounded by such bright kids and be in an environment where kids were encouraged to support one another. And I see that, I realize, you know, and I said it, but sometimes you hear this stuff and you go, yeah, that's a nice thing to say. I feel it here. We went out to dinner last night with 4 of Jack's friends. They're delightful. Such good, smart, engaging, open, and they love it here. No, they love it here. They love it here. They love it here. I'm sure it's not 100%, but boy, it's just amazing to me. Everybody I meet who went here, in fact, you know, I told you Barnett, and also one of the guy who is out selling, we just sold another TV thing out in Hollywood, he went here as well. And they both said, oh, I want to be there, I wish I was there. And they're not kidding. They wish they were here.
It's great.
Yeah.
Well, look, thank you so much for speaking. Yeah.